Welcome to the This Gal Travels podcast, the show that helps you travel more, travel easier, and travel better. I'm Trina, and today I am talking about soft adventure travel, what it is, and why it is both more accessible and awesome. My best pro traveler tip is always at the end of the show, so make sure you listen all the way through. Okay, so what is soft adventure? To be honest, soft adventure is pretty much any adventure you go on where you don't need any special practice or special training in order to be able to do it. This means that the average person can pick up and go and do this adventure no problem. In some cases, there might be a little bit of training, like a little safety review or a little bit of instruction, like if you've ever done a zip line, you've gone down to Mexico and done a zip line and they give you some instructions along the way. There might be a little bit of instruction. But when I'm talking about training, I'm talking, the people who do hard adventure. And they train and they practice and they go out on weekends and do things around town, and then they go off on these big trips and do these big hard adventures. Hard adventure has more risk, and they are activities that you have to train for. Soft adventure, almost anyone can do them anytime. Some soft adventure might be hiking, like short distance type hiking, like you might be hiking out to a village or hiking up a mountain to a temple. Horseback riding, considering moderate horseback riding, not like hardcore horseback riding. But those light rides, again, I rode a horse up to a temple in China, and I would consider that a soft adventure. Fishing, going on safari is a soft adventure. Snorkeling might be a soft adventure, although there's everything has different levels, but I would consider that a fairly soft adventure. Hot air balloon rides or aerial tours, things like that can be soft adventure. Visiting local markets could be a soft adventure. Trust me, diving into a local African market is definitely an adventure. Now, diving into a local market in Asia is another story altogether. It's a little easier on most levels, but it's an adventure into itself. And I'll tell you, going into a local market in Asia is very different than going into a local market in Africa. You might think they're sort of similar, but if you haven't done either, then I would say that going into a night market in Asia is a little closer to doing something like going to an arts and crafts fair in the US, something along those lines. Whereas an African market, depending on the market, is a total riot of experiences. And I'll tell you this, on my second channel, I have some market walks. I'll put a link to a couple really good ones in the description. So you can see what I mean. I've been at markets where you're walking by and all of a sudden a bunch of sheep run through, and then, you go a little further and you have people, oh, hey, come over here, take a look at this and that, and you're used to that. But then you turn a corner and, oh, hey, there's a cow right there. And I know that's partly just a rural thing, but then all the other things that go on in an African market, as I say, there's more unexpected there. But that's another type of adventure. Honestly, I would put something like learning to cross the street in Jakarta as a soft adventure. We even had to receive a little bit of instruction. And as I say, I think some soft adventures can still have a little bit of instruction. They just don't need a lot of preparation and training. Pretty much anything you do that's new and different can be a soft adventure, but it also should be something that challenges you, and makes you learn something new and grow a little bit every time you do it. Even if you do it more than once, it's not the same every time. The nice thing about soft adventures is that they're much more accessible. Now, if we're talking true like disabilities, handicaps, anything where you're like mobility impaired, it's going to be, it depends on the activity. Tim was mostly blind. He wasn't the most mobile all the time either, but he was mostly blind was his biggest issue. And he was able to do a lot of the stuff we did. Sometimes not. Sometimes I went on adventures on my own because it was something I really wanted to do, and he didn't want to stop me. And there were things that I did do on my own. But a lot of them are, as I say, are accessible, but in his case, he was just really slow at some things. You should go to, if you want to know slow, we went to Kakum National Park here in Ghana in 2019, and you have to go up these stone steps through the forest in order to get up to this canopy walkway, and you walk over the rope canopy walkway, and it's really fun. I mean, I did it first in 2003, and I really enjoyed it, and so I took him. Thing is, they told us it would be a 15 minutes to the top, which maybe they can make it in 15 minutes, but no, I figured it was 30 to 35 minutes for me, but it actually took Tim 3 hours to get to the top because his eyes were so bad. It was one we probably should have passed on. There's a whole bit more to the adventure there. You can read it on the website. I'll put a link to it in the description if you want to know more about how that went down. The whole article is on Cape Coast because it's a day trip you do from Cape Coast. But I'll put a link and you can give that a look. But I bring it up because if you do have any sort of disabilities or impairments of whatever type they might be, some soft adventures are still going to be accessible and some aren't. And some might be accessible if you have a good travel companion. So the thing is, they're more likely to be available to you than a hard adventure, depending on what your challenge is. But what's really cool is that soft adventures are open to so many more people. Most people can do most of them. Pretty much all of my travels and all my adventures have been soft adventures. And that doesn't make them any less fun, it doesn't make them any less intense, and it doesn't make them any less awesome. Soft adventure is adventure, period. Some of the things I've done over the years, I mentioned the rope canopy walkway. If you've listened to any other episodes or caught some videos, Mole National Park is a small safari. In a big park. There's a walking safari and a jeep safari. I've done both several times now. I've been to a stilt village in far western Ghana. The first time I did it, it was a canoe ride. The second time, opted for canoe, wish we had chosen the motorboat. I've been kayaking in Thailand. I've been snorkeling in Thailand as well, also in the Red Sea. In fact, my first time was in the Red Sea. And that was really nice because the water was really calm and it was really easy and I loved it. And in Thailand, the snorkeling was actually more in the ocean, near a reef, rock formation thing. But I will say, I found that I'm not real big on the ocean activities. I like being on a boat and above the ocean, but I can't say I love being in the ocean. That's something I've learned about myself in travel. Is it a fear I want to get over? It's not a hardcore fear, but it's a dislike. Maybe some point I'll work on getting over it, but right now it just stands as, that's not my favorite thing to do. But of all the things I've done, that's like the only one so far that I can think of that's come up that way. You don't have to love everything. Just like with food, just because you try it doesn't mean you have to love it. Visiting Tanah Toraja in Indonesia to go see their funeral rites, and that was a 5-day adventure. We saw graves, we saw a funeral, we saw all sorts of things, and it was a mix of hiking and attending events and all sorts of adventures there, and that was really interesting. As I said, climbing stairs to go get up to a temple. In China, they have three or no, probably not 4. There's some Buddhist, there are holy mountains where you have to climb, like Taishan, you have to climb like 6,000 steps to get to the top. Now, again, Tim was with me on that one, and because he was slow, because that was it was 2007, but he was losing his eyesight at that point. We were slower than expected, and we had been misled on how long it should take. This is a theme that comes up. By the way, I'll say this right now. If you're doing an activity and anyone local tells you how long something takes to do, double it. If you're anything near a normal human being and not a superhuman being, just whatever they say locally, double it so you don't mess up your expectations. If they say it takes 2 hours, expect easily 3 to 4. Because too many times I've been stung by locals telling us, oh no, it's only this, and then it's a whole lot more. Okay, so but we were going up we got halfway up to Taishan, and then, see, this is one of the keys. If you have any difficulties, or if, let's say you get into it and you find you've maybe overextended yourself a little bit, is there was a cable car to the top. So we made it to the halfway point, and then we took the cable car to the top. And that was a good choice, because we wouldn't have made it otherwise. I've climbed up to holy Buddhist mountains in China, to the Great Wall of China. And of course, see, this is my brain. We were in China. Tim had said he wanted to see the Great Wall, but I had heard that the touristy part of it was really touristy and not so much fun. So I said, hey, let's go out and see this scenic part of the wall. Well, I didn't understand that scenic also meant the wall is falling apart. And that ended up being a hike in itself. And we got through 6 or 7 or 8 of the towers. And then it was real obvious we weren't going to keep up with the group. And so we had these young women who were guides, and they ended up escorting us a shortcut. And it was still a hike. I mean, it was still like a hike through the woods kind of challenge type thing. But it got us to the end point faster, because there was no way we were going to make it on time otherwise. That was the idea of, let's not do the touristy thing. Let's do this more scenic. Sometimes more scenic means a lot harder to get to. That's another key phrase, a sneaky little traveler tip in there for you. Visiting villages. Now, sometimes they have villages that are sort of put on, and it's not a bad thing that they're put on. They keep their traditions going in exchange for getting a little bit of money and payment and all that. That happens in Southeast Asia. It doesn't really happen. I haven't seen it happen here in Africa. It probably happens some, though. I will almost bet you that for tourism dollars, there are some places that keep a traditional feel. But I haven't actually experienced that yet. The villages I've been to here in Africa have all been real villages. In fact, a few weeks ago, I just went to a witchcraft village called Gambaga in northern Ghana, and I'm going to have a video coming out about that. So if you're just listening to this on the podcast, pop over to YouTube, check out the This Gal Travels channel, because you might want to see the video that covers the northern Ghana tour and the Gambaga witchcraft village visit. So that's upcoming. But see, those are all soft adventures. And some of them you might say, that's not very physical, or going to a voodoo ceremony in Benin. That's not very physical. You're just sitting there watching. But it's still an adventure, okay? It is still a new experience, and it is still something that you have to step out of your comfort zone to go and do. Because your comfort zone has you just doing the daily stuff you do at home every day. You're doing all your mundane, normal daily stuff. And if you're doing things like a hot air balloon ride, like going to see going to the voodoo performance, or climbing stairs to a temple, or anything like that, you are doing something new, and it is a soft adventure on one level or another. It doesn't have to just be a purely physical endeavor. And one of the nice things about this kind of adventure, especially if you're planning your trip on your own and it's not quite so tour oriented, is that honestly, this is one of the places where you get to meet locals a lot. Sometimes it's a little transactional, because you're there, like if you're at a market, you're doing business with people, but you also have this opportunity to just talk with people. Even if they are vendors, a lot of people will just talk with you to talk with you. People are very friendly in most parts of the world, to be really honest. You'll end up making friends in some of the most interesting of places sometimes. Going off on all these little adventures usually gets you involved, at least on some level, with local people, the local economy, and you get to learn far more about a place than if you just stay to the nice, safe tours and the nice touristy places. Even if it's a place that has been frequented by tourists before, if it's a little bit of an adventure, it is still going to get you closer to the real place. Does that make sense? I mean, like even if you go to a temple, like in Indonesia, it's amazing how many people there are. There's like people everywhere. And we went to a temple, and I thought it was sort of out in the middle of nowhere. It was a little bit of a drive, and it's one of the big temples. And there's like a whole city around it. And you go and you sit and you have lunch before you go in, and you just have a nice time, and you sit and you end up talking with like the owner of the food place, or the chef, and you talk to someone, and then you meet people on the inside. And as I say, just doing these various adventures just gets you in touch with real people and not just tourism industry people. Let's say, even if it's a tourist spot, you'll find a lot less tourism in some of these adventures. Soft adventures also are often quite affordable. That's another thing that makes them more accessible to more people, is that they're generally more affordable. Now, sometimes you have to make a decision. We did the orangutan houseboat tour, which for Tim and me, it was a big thing. It was Indonesia was the first country we went to when we set off on our world tour. And this adventure was a bit of a chunk of money, but oh man, we are so glad we spent it. And when you consider what we got, we had 3 days on a private houseboat, and we had, the guys that ran the boat also were our guides to get to the locations, and they did an incredible job of helping Tim. And they also, we had a chef on board, and oh man, every meal was amazing. And so it was 3 nights on this houseboat, and it was just, the whole thing was an amazing experience. And that was with, I think, 3 stops to see orangutans. And as I say, the whole experience was just everything you could possibly want it to be. And we were so well taken care of. And so that expenditure was absolutely worth it. Now, I mentioned hot air ballooning. When we were in Myanmar, we actually hit off season because there's a place there called Bagan, and they have all these temples. And there's just thousands of temples there. And you can do a hot air balloon ride over the plateau where the temples are. But it was going to be like about the same price that we paid for 3 days and 2 nights on the orangutan houseboat. We would have had to pay for something that was maybe a 40-minute hot air balloon ride. And even if it had been available when we were there, I'll be honest, we wouldn't have done it. That was too expensive for too short of an experience. So depending on your budget, you're going to have to decide, which adventures are within your pocketbook or not. If money isn't an issue for you, though, I say do everything. Do everything you have the energy to do, because you are probably only going to be in that place one time, and you don't want to miss out. And to be honest, even if you're on a tight budget, if you've watched or listened to my podcast on trip planning, as I say, always budget 20 to 30% over what you think you're going to need, and that's so you can do those special events. There might be the event once in a while that you sit there and say, I wasn't going to use my credit card for this, but this one's worth it. Don't put yourself into major debt or anything like that. Consider whether this is a once in a lifetime experience, and if you're never going to get back there, are you going to regret if you didn't do it? That would be my guideline, is if it's within your affordability range, are you going to regret? Are you going to get home and say, oh man, I wish I had? Because if you are, then that's the time. Go ahead and do it. Hopefully, while you're planning your trip, you are already finding all of these wonderful things to do where you're traveling. You're looking in your guidebook, or you're looking online, and you're like, oh, I can do this, and I can do that, and I can do this, and I can do that. And you've got all the activities you could possibly want. But I will say, sometimes look a little deeper, because there are some things in individual places that might come up only if you research a city or an area, a region, as opposed to looking at the entire country. Because if you look at all the things to do in Ghana, I guarantee you there's going to be this list of things, and there's one thing that no one ever mentions, and I have it on that article I mentioned that has the Kakum National Park story, also has this, which is in the Cape Coast area, and that's Posaban shrines. And Posaban are really interesting things. They are these places where the local militias meet. Nowadays, SAFO groups, these militia groups, are more for communication and town organization. But there was a time when they were the protectors of the village, and they would store their weapons there, and if anything started to happen, everyone would meet there. And these shrines have statues, and they're these statues that are they're hand built, they're hand sculpted, and they have really interesting imagery, and some are simple, but they all have stories behind them. There's one that's 3 stories tall, the one in Mankesim, and you go there, and usually you get a storyteller, and he'll tell you the whole story of the entire place. and there's these legends that are attached to them, and they're just amazing places. But you can watch 20 videos on things to do in Ghana, and I guarantee you that's never going to come up. So I say research deeper, and when you're going to a city, look for unique things to do in X city, because you might miss out. If you are looking at a big picture, you might miss out on this really cool little thing. And if no one thinks to tell you while you're there, they might not think you're interested in that sort of thing. So always research a little bit deeper, and you're going to find some of the most unique soft adventures, and you're going to come home with some of the best travel stories. Definitely check out that article I'm going to post, because it has not only the Cancun thing, but the Posabon thing, and that's a really cool thing to have a look at. When you're going through your guides and you're picking out all these activities you want to do, while soft adventure doesn't generally require a lot of practice and training, there could be some things that you want to take with you to make that soft adventure more reasonable and easier to do. And I'm not talking about a big lot of prep, but like if you're going to do some hiking, and especially if you're not used to it, and let's say you need some decent hiking shoes, well, get them a few weeks before your trip and get them broken in before you leave. And if you're doing some hiking on some terrain, or if you have any little bit of mobility issue, you might want to get a hiking stick. It doesn't have to be, if you're only going to use it once in a while and it's a lightweight thing, just get an inexpensive one, but you might want to take a hiking stick with you. Or if you're doing water sports, you say, oh, I want to go kayaking. That sounds like a lot of fun. Or even if you're just doing anything on and off a boat a lot, like in Thailand, you have to wade out into the water to get onto the boats. And in fact, I've been in more places where you have to wade out into the water to get on the boats than ones that have proper docks and stairs and stuff like that. So you might want to take a dry bag with you, and it's a bag made out of stuff that keeps things completely dry. And you might want to get a waterproof case for your phone. Like if you're going to do a water festival in Southeast Asia, you're going to want to get something to keep your phone dry. Now, I will say some things you can just buy on site. You can buy if there's a water festival, they're going to have the things to protect your phone. But these are things to consider. So you might need a little bit of equipment beforehand. It's not heavy duty stuff, but there might be a couple things you want to make sure to pack. So consider that when you're choosing your activities. Also, and I sort of mentioned this a little bit, but if you're not in the best physical shape and you are approaching a more physical task, two things. First of all, don't be afraid to push yourself. It's okay to push yourself. However, thing two is also know your limits. You've got to decide, can I really make that? Or am I going to get out there and I'm going to be exhausted, or something could go wrong? Not just anything could go wrong, but you know what I mean. How far out is it? How challenging is it? Are you going to be able to make it out and back? And that's assuming a hike, but there could be other types of activities. Just make sure that while you can push yourself, that you do also keep things within your abilities. And also you can always check. You can say, hey, if I get out there and can't make it back, can a car come pick me up? Is there an alternate shorter route? Like at Cancun National Park, the rope bridges, they have one that's very short, and they have the longer route. And the short route is like if someone is afraid of heights and they're doing it anyways, and they sort of freak out and they need to get off the bridge, they have a shorter route for getting off the bridge, or just for people who can't handle a longer trek. Although if you made it up those stone stairs, I dare say physically you're capable of making it across all the bridges. And that brings me to something else. If you have mostly traveled in the US, and I'm sort of assuming Europe, you might not be as accustomed to the fact that in many places, safety measures are not the same as they are in the US. In fact, sometimes there are just no safety measures whatsoever. And sometimes there's minimal safety measures. So you are going to be very responsible for your own well-being. And in most places, if you have a guide with you, if there's someone running a trip, they're going to do what they can to keep you safe and comfortable and all that. It's not that they're not going to take care of you, but if it's one that you're off doing on your own, just be aware, not everything is as couched in safety as it is in the US. And that right there is one of the reasons you need travel insurance. You just never know what you're going to run into and what could happen. So I am going to put a link for my travel insurance article. All it is a comparison. It's a look at two of the most major companies, and it gives you a rundown of the offerings. But yeah, when you travel, you take more risks, and you do all these new activities, and it's all sorts of fun because they're soft adventures, but you're doing all these new adventures, and this is one of the number one reasons you need travel insurance. So what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of heights? Are you afraid of animals? Are you going to let that fear stop you from doing a once-in-a-lifetime thing in an absolutely awesome place while you're on your absolutely awesome vacation? Try not to give in to that fear. Seriously. I keep using Kakum National Park because it's kind of perfect for all of this. It is high up. Someone who's afraid of heights, you would think this would be the scariest thing for them. And yet, the ropes on the side of this rope bridge come up to just about my armpits. They're very tall. You are not going to fall off of this rope bridge. And to me, I'm not scared of heights, okay? I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not scared of heights. But to me, for someone that is scared of heights but wanted to get over it, that would be an awesome way to do it. And that's an awesome setting. You're safe, but it's adventurous, and that would be great to do. And I say that, and I know it's not that easy. We all have our fears. We all have our fears. But I'll tell you one thing. I remember I used to be scared of roller coasters. And it's kind of funny because I was scared of roller coasters when I was a kid. So I'm certainly not the tallest person on these roller coasters. And yet I was afraid that, the girders that end up going over your head at some point in most roller coasters, I was afraid of getting hit in the head. And at some point during my high school years, I finally figured out that there were people on this ride that were a lot taller than I was. And if all those people can ride and not hit their heads on the girders, then, I can probably ride pretty safely too. And so this is my advice is, remember, if you're going to do an activity, and it's something that a fair number of people have done before you, if not hundreds, thousands, many, many people have done before you, chances are it's pretty safe, chances are you are going to be absolutely fine. Think about all the people who have done it before you. That'll give you a pretty good idea of how safe it is or isn't. And if the answer is a lot of people have done it before you, then it's probably a pretty safe thing to do. And you shouldn't be too terribly scared of it. Oh, and besides, overcoming fear is one of those things in life that helps you grow and it makes you stronger as a person. And you know what? That's one of the absolute best benefits of travel. So don't miss out on an opportunity to overcome your fears. And by the way, if you're enjoying this podcast, now would be a great time to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have a friend who you think would enjoy it, please share it. That would be really awesome. Thank you. I've shared some of my adventures here in Africa and in Southeast Asia, but the thing is, there are adventures everywhere. No matter what destination you want to go to, you are going to find some adventures. Even if you're going on a resort-like trip to Mexico, which might just be to go and, escape the winter and go down for some drinking and some beach time, but you're going to find adventures down there, as I say, like a zip line. We did a zip line adventure and ended at a tequila factory. So there's a Mexican adventure for you, and there's about 1 million more adventures in Mexico, depending on what you want to do. You could go whale watching in Mexico, another one there. You could go, if you go to Mongolia, you could do a homestay in a yurt. The traditional homes that the nomads will literally pack up and move when they need to move. I do believe, to do this correctly, I believe it's actually called a gur when you're in Mongolia. I have not done that one yet. That is on my list of things to do, is to get up to Mongolia at the right time of year, meaning summer, and hopefully stay in a yurt with a family for a night or two. You could even go to Switzerland and hike on a glacier. There is so much to do pretty much anywhere you go. And you can go for urban adventures as well. Now that very much depends on the city you're going to, but what if you did some research and found like the greatest graffiti mural spots in a city and you went to go visit all of those? Now that would be an adventure. Or maybe you're looking for some of the best hiking spots in Los Angeles, or hiking up to the Hollywood sign. That's an adventure. The trick with that one, though, is when you come back down, go to the observatory. Go to the Griffith Observatory, because that's a really cool place to go to. Might not be a huge adventure, but it's a really fun place to go. Okay, it's a really fun place to go if you're a science geek like me. One thing, though, is when you are planning your trip and deciding where to go, the question is, are you going to go based on the adventure or the destination and find your adventures later? You know what I mean? So are you going to choose a destination and then choose your adventures in that destination? Or are you going to say, I want to do this, and therefore there are only a certain number of places you can go. I want to hike a volcano. Okay, well, there are only certain places that have volcanoes, so that narrows your list down right there. That's not a bad way to pick your destination. You can say, I want to go sandboarding down some dunes. Again, limited places to be able to do that, but very awesome and very fun to do. But that's something to think about when you're planning your trip. Which is more important, the adventure or the destination? So I have a pro traveler tip for you today, but I just realized I actually already sort of gave it to you. It's that if you're ever feeling scared about doing something, think about the hundreds or thousands of people that have done it before you. Actually, it's a little different. So the thing is while you're thinking about all those people that did it before you, if they can do it, you can do it. Okay? If they can do it, you can do it. Most likely. Probably. A little bit depends on other factors, but probably. And I will tell you, as an old, fat, out of shape person, if you see anything I've done and wonder if you can do it, if I can do it, you can do it. Seriously. If I've made it through, chances are you'll make it through. So that's your Pro Traveler tip for today. Thanks for coming. I hope you've enjoyed today's show, and I'll see you next time.